John Disselkamp, welcome to the Six Figure Cleaner podcast, man.
How are you?
Dude, doing awesome. It's good to see you. A month or so ago at the Cleaning and Cocktails event, you crushed it on stage with your talk about how to get some more sales, man. So good job on that. I know I learned a lot personally.
Good. You as well, my friend. You hit the stage pretty. Looks like you've done it a few more times than I have. So
Well, it's fun for all of us for sure. So, hey, man, let's set the stage here. Let's talk about your business, like how many years you've been in business, what kind of revenue you're doing now, how many employees you got. Like, just tell us, what does your company look like in the year 2023?
yeah. But I'll go back in time just real quickly for a second. So I started the company from scratch 7 years ago, 7.5 years ago, whatever that is, January 2016. Started cleaning by myself. Pulled my dad in here and there, and did about 90,000 in annual revenue that first year. Started hiring a few employees that first year. And then to your question, fast forward a lot in between there, of course, but fast forward to 2023, we are projected to do about 10 million in sales this year, give or take. We did 4.8 million last year, but we brought on a few large clients at the end of last year, so that should put us. We're at a run rate now. If you take our monthly billing times 12, last month we're at about eight and a half right now. So, and about 260, give or take, team members, W-2 employees, what we call team members. So that's where we are today. We focus primarily on what I call mid to large, but moving more towards large commercial facilities. So mostly consists of really two things: Class A office and medical office.
All right. Hey, so I had somebody ask me this the other day. They're like, what does Class A mean? So give us just a really brief, like, this is what Class A office means.
It's just a fancy commercial real estate term for nicer, newer buildings, right? So, and they can charge more rent. So, if you see an office building that looks a little newer, it's all glass on the outside, shiny, that's more of a Class A building. If you see an older office building that has less windows and been around for 40 years, you're probably more in the Class B territory, if that makes sense. So, I don't know if there's like a real fine line, but most corporate headquarters these days are kind of Class A, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man. Buddy of mine asked me, he's like, what does Class A mean? I was like, that means it's pretty nice. That's what that
That
means.
means they can charge more rent, and
That's right.
there's more glass. It's nicer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably a company that's doing okay in that space, man. It's a nice spot. But dude, that's awesome. All right. So you're looking at, I mean, going 8 figures in 8 years then, as far as in your business. Because if you're going to be at that 10 million mark in year 8, it sounds like that's pretty awesome, dude. That's kind of crazy growth for a commercial cleaning company.
Yeah. It's been a lot of work, man, but it's been good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so question for you on ideal client now. So we know who you're looking at now. Was that exactly when you got started, John? Were you looking for Class A space? Were you just trying to find anything? Has your target client
Yeah. I mean,
changed?
it's definitely narrowed over time, right? We figured out what we like better and what works better for us, what's better to scale a company, all that stuff. But when I started, I mean, I had, right now it's minimum 5 night a week cleaning, ideally 10,000 a month or more is what we're chasing, So, but back then, I took most anything I could get, right? So, like, we had a church that was once a week, which is still, it's almost like an account that there's some history behind it and emotions behind it that we keep. But, I had a once a week, small office. So it was kind of across the board, little onesie, Tuesday, 2 day a week, 3 day a week, 1 day a week, even once a month, type of accounts. I quickly realized that the bigger the better for a few reasons, at least for me. But in the beginning, it was kind of a little bit all over the place. And then over time, once we had the revenue, the profit, and the team to do so, then we really took a hard look at some of those real small ones and decided to let some of those go over time.
I heard you say this before at Cleaning and Cocktails. I think you said you had an account. Your first account was like a 2 day a week, and did you
That
say
was
you're
when I was
charging?
cleaning.
Yeah, like $600 or $700 a month or something like that.
600 months, 2 days a week, cleaning common areas of an office building. Yeah.
All right, I didn't have a chance to ask you this question at Cleaning and Cocktails because you're on stage, but I'm like, Do you still have that account, or is that one moved on? You said you got the church for early days. You still got the first wood you picked up?
So no, but we didn't lose it. It got sold to a different ownership group, and they gutted the building and turned it from an office building into storage units. So
Okay.
there is no cleaning for it. But to give you some context, the next building that was right around the corner that I got that first year, we still have that, and we've only lost one client in 7 years to poor service, or that it was their decision. We've let some clients go, but
Uh-huh.
we've lost one in 7 years.
Yeah.
Now I don't anticipate that continuing forever, right? I don't know if that's sustainable forever, but we've done a decent job of trying to take care of our clients.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm asking this question in regards to, there's different uh, team member or employee types people will go after. Sometimes there's certain demographics people are chasing, or maybe they're looking at they want to hire full time or they want to hire part time. From the start of your company, what was the ideal team member for you then, and then has that changed at all 7 years later?
Yeah, so as far as I'll start with like the full time versus part time. So we started with part time, and as with most things that I've done with my company, it wasn't a John original idea. I learned it from somebody else or a podcast or something like this, right?
Mhm.
And when I was cleaning, I was listening to podcasts about business, about cleaning. Um, and so I adopted kind of that part time model. So out of the 260 team members we have now, probably 230 ish are part time. And on average, they work Monday through Friday. We don't have anybody working on the weekends unless there's some special project work or whatever. And on average, they work anywhere between 3 and 3.5 hours, 3 to 4 hours a night. And the majority of them, not all, but the majority of them have a full time job during the day, and this is a side gig. And that's kind of how I started. And we just kind of continued with that. And obviously, supervisors, managers, some floor techs, administration obviously are more full time, but the majority of our frontline cleaners are part time. So we've kind of stuck with that. But the idea behind it of why we did it and why we've kind of stuck with it, because there's good and bad. I've seen companies succeed very well with full time cleaners, and I've seen companies succeed with part time. So I don't think there's a right or wrong. But the reality of the business is, and I think we've done a good job of hiring people, but people still call in and those things happen, right? So, like for example, we cleaned 125,000 square foot office building. It's the Churchill Downs, the racetrack here in Louisville. It's the corporate office for them, right? And so it's 4 story, 125,000 square feet, and I'm probably off on the numbers, but let's say it takes 24 man hours a night to clean the building. Um, you could put three full time people in there, or you could put 8 3 hour people in there. We've always liked the model of putting 8 3 hour people in there for a few reasons. One, if you have three people, full time people, and one, or God forbid, two people call out, you got one or two people clean 125,000 square foot building. Ain't gonna happen,
Yeah.
right? Or it's not, So you have 7 people, you can still get it done. So there's some built-in backup plan, if you will, and plus we've also found that the quality of cleaning can go down tremendously after 3 or 4 hours.
Uh-huh.
It's just hard to really hustle for 8 straight hours when you're cleaning. So the efficiency is not as good and that type of thing. So um, again, there's downsides to part time as well, but so and then as far as like demographic, we weren't really targeting any certain, you know, old, young, or anything like that in the beginning. It was just I was looking for people that were willing to work hard and that had some energy about them, right?
Yeah.
And that had some job stability. Um, and we still kind of look at those same things really today, but and also in the beginning, more so than now, I really needed people that were self sufficient because I could only do so much and have so much time. So I didn't, if it was somebody that I had to kind of baby a little bit or whatever, like I ended up having to let go of some good people in the beginning that I kind of regret, because I didn't have the time to to train them a little more, I guess.
Yeah.
But hard work, the things that I've found that work are a work ethic. Well, how do you know if they're a hard worker? Well, you look at their past, you look at their their job history. Is there big gaps? Is the full-time job that they're working at, they've been there for a long time? Um, better to get referrals, obviously. And then location. If you're only working 3-4 hours a night, you better be close to where you work during the day or your house, or you're not going to stay. Um, and then energy is probably one indicator of whether they're going to work hard or not. In this industry, the way we want them to clean, they got to have some energy about them. So,
Man, I love that, John, because our model in regards to that is somewhat similar. I'm like, man, if people are working like it's hard to clean for 40 hours a week. Like even when it's not a lot of labor, like just the lack of mental stimulation, I feel like it's just challenging, So we look at it the same way as far as it's saying get somebody to work 2 to 4 hours a night and like they can do that and then they can, roll on to the next thing. So I love that. So your model for hiring hasn't changed dramatically as far as you've been looking for part time consistently the whole time.
part-time, core value fit,
Yeah,
um, and some energy about them, and again, location and job history. So, yeah.
love it, love it. All right, this is a question I love to ask John because as people are trying to figure out how to scale their business. In order, by the way, as we're saying this, like people can make six figure, clean in the cleaning business before they build a big business if they're like cleaning a lot. But if they want to make good quality of life and be able to make six figures, they're gonna have to invest in building some business systems. And software plays, in my opinion, a huge role in that. I know it did for our journey. Getting the right software systems in place helped us to be able to, like save a lot of man hours of management time, figure some stuff out. So I'd love to know what you guys are using from different software systems that you have found that's been beneficial for you for growing your cleaning company.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I are pretty similar here. We use Swept, right?
Right.
So Swept has been something I signed up with, not too long after Swept started. Michael Brown, the owner, has become a friend of mine, and he's run a good business, and they've kind of grown with us over time. Um, but if you're just getting started, or even if you're, 0 to 5 million in sales, 6 million, 7 million sales, I think Swep's a great product. We use it for operations, so timekeeping, which rolls into payroll reports, inspections, managing supplies, communication, um, checklist, all scope work, all the above. We use Paycor to process payroll. We use QuickBooks still, QuickBooks Online for all of our financial stuff, so P&L, all that. Accounts receivable, so we do all our invoicing through there. Accounts payable, write checks out of there. We use Quantec for our applicant ATS, applicant tracking system, which is now owned by Team Software, which is a big player in our industry. But Quantec is something we're probably in more than anything. Quantec and Swept, and then I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, we use Microsoft suite of products as well.
You
I
guys
still
use
never
any?
use
Y'all have a CRM that you use?
never use a CRM.
I know
Yeah,
for the clients too, you're trying to tackle like so for right now for us at our company, we don't have one either. Like we've used them in the past, but just like maintaining it, we've just sucked at that to be honest. And we found ways around it, But I'm like, I feel like I should have one. So you guys don't have one either, and you're
yeah, but we focus on larger customers. We're very pretty niche down on what type of customers we're going after and that type of thing. So we're not doing a bunch of volume, right? So we're at almost 10 million in sales and we got like 50, 60 customers, right?
okay.
So it's not that hard to manage. And we manage them through Swept, through QuickBooks in different ways.
Yeah,
And then as far as like uh, potential clients, like, you know, um, I mean, I hate to admit it, but most of it's up here in my head or on Excel
uh-huh.
spreadsheet, just keeping a pipeline for myself. Since I'm still, I sit in kind of the visionary box, CEO, have a guy that runs the day to day. He's president, COO of the company, integrator, if you're using the EOS terms, which we run our company on EOS. But then I also am still director of sales and still wear that hat. And I've done 100% of the sales of the company, and it's been more relationship based. So, but I will tell you, for people listening, I don't think a CRM or a limited, cheaper CRM when you're getting started is not a bad idea, because most companies aren't going after all larger customers like we are. So you're going to make your money in volume, right? So you need a bunch of $500 accounts as opposed to one $50,000 a month account, which is kind of our strategy, right? And the more customers, the more potential customers, the more email marketing, all that stuff, social media, it's probably not a bad idea to start looking at the CRM. Do you need it day one? I don't believe you do, but I think over time it's something. I mean, you've gotten away without using it up to this point, and so have I. It's something we're probably looking at soon, though.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're saying too is great. Like when you are going after the clients that you're going after, it's like, well, you've narrowed down your niche a lot. Like there's not like there's 30,000 prospects for you with who you're going after that are in Louisville, right? So yeah, you don't probably need it quite as much as somebody that's like, well, no, I just want to clean any office in Louisville. Like, all right, well, you guys, you do have thousands of potential prospects if that's your case. So I love that
Yeah.
you're niched the way that you are at this point. So man, all right. So I want to reference this. Our mutual friend Ken Carfagno, he did a phenomenal interview with you, where you guys really go like deep into your story. So you want to know the John Disselkamp story, all about John. Like, I'm not going to repeat that here. We don't need to, because you and Ken did such a great job. So that's Smart Cleaning School episode 373. Ken interviews John and gets a lot to John's personal story and also some of the business stuff. But we're going to just keep it on like the business and your six-figure story. And again, to defining that for people, right? Because you or I, but neither of us take a six-figure salary, quote unquote, from our companies, but both of us as owners benefit beyond six figures with the things we're able to do, right? So if we're, I was gonna have a cell phone anyway, I could pay it through the company, my car payment through the company, all these things I'm able to pay through the company. That would be because we're business owners. We can make that part of the lifestyle that we have, and it can be a business expense. But I want to, talk a little bit about your story from regards to that point. So I know you've been in business for 7 years. What year in business, John, where you're like, hey, this is really when I got to the point where it was a kind of six-figure personal benefit from the company?
Yeah. So, because you had told me you might ask that question, so I kind of looked up. Like I really didn't know the answer, to be honest. But I think in year three is when I hit that mark. So to your point, and you make a good point, and we talked before, like for those that are in their first couple of years in business, I think it's important to reinvest in your business and not take a huge salary out if you can help it. So I paid myself I think a $35,000-$40,000 salary for the first 2-3 years, and I'm still only paying myself a $65,000 salary today as a $10 million company. And to your point, when you hear six figures, and what Josh is referring to is complete income. So that would be maybe the profit at the bottom of your profit and loss statement. So your income minus your expenses equals your profit. One of those expenses is my $65,000 salary, and then so your income would be that 65,000 plus whatever. If you're 100% owner of your company, the bottom line profit, and then of course other benefits like Josh mentioned. So, um, yeah. So that was in year three of the business. We did about 950 in top line revenue that year.
Mhm.
So it went from 90,000 to 350 to 950, and that's kind of when we started to hit that six-figure mark. We might have it towards the end of the year before, but I'm pretty sure it was in year three.
So I love John, and too, you guys go check out Ken's interview with John, because you really get into your story in a lot of detail. But that's kind of the cool thing, man, for me, as I've interviewed people, is like everybody's story is a little bit different. So for you, you're a smart guy. You've been in the banking industry, like you've done some cool things. And when you're going into cleaning, you weren't going in to be like, oh, let me see if I can make this work. You're like, no, I'm gonna build a business. I'm gonna make it happen. And so you're really able to leverage going, I say all in from the start, from the standpoint of saying you're gonna make this thing work. There's some people that they started their cleaning business on the side of their full-time income, their full-time job. So everybody's story is going to look a little different. And I think that's pretty cool. I know for me, mine was a lot lengthier than that, because I freaking hated this sucker, man. I was like, I'm going to make money in all these other businesses, and this thing, if I can get this thing on autopilot as quick as possible, I'd love it, because I don't want to be Josh the janitor. And here I am with a cleaning podcast. So it's funny how it changes.
But
So
to your
you,
point, to your point, Josh,
yes,
you
sir.
mean a lot of I've heard that from a lot of people because it isn't the most sexy business.
Mhm.
But if you do it right and you are interested in what gets your blood flowing better is something like real estate or whatever, coaching, or could be something else, you know, make sure you have something that produces the cash to allow you to do those things. And a cleaning business, if done right, can be a great foundation for you to build wealth long term and maybe do some things that you like doing better and get it more on autopilot, like you mentioned. But those first few years, you gotta grind for a while before you can get to that point.
Yeah. And man, I
Sorry.
tell you, no, I think that thank you for pointing that out. I know, John, one of the things I think you probably had this from the beginning with this, some of the knowledge you had and the way you chose to start. But I just didn't personally have the humility I needed to make this thing work the way it needed to. Um, and I really, God bless my business. He was like, I feel like God said to me, like, just go all in on this thing and see what happens. And then once I did that, like, 12 months later, I was making six figures doing this stuff, but I had to get over myself a little bit. And I think that's probably the story for some of us for sure. So you kind of knew from day one though that because of some people you talked to, your knowledge as a banker and probably being able to talk to some commercial cleaning company owners, you knew six figures was a possibility when you were getting started, right?
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I did. I mean, if I'm being honest, did I have some big master plan? Did I think I'd be where we are today? No. I kind of just put my head down and worked hard. I was, yeah, listen to the other podcast. You'll see I was in a low point in my life. And to be fair, had I not been living with my mom at the time because my house was rented out, I probably would have had too many expenses to be able to go all in, and I probably would have had to keep my full time job and do the side hustle, which is probably the case for most people.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that John had all this money that he could afford to lose every month with expenses. It was I didn't have any overhead because I had to live with my mom at 35 years old. So, um, yeah. So, anyways, just to give you a little backstory there.
Well, that's the cool thing, John, is you're not the only person that I've heard talk that said that. Hey, year three is when I got to that level. But the funny, and it was same level too. They're like, hey, year three, we got close to a million, or we went over a million that year, and we were able to make six figures from doing it. But it was the people that said from day one, like, I'm going all in. So these two guys, they quit their they quit their jobs, went all in. They got an apartment together, and
Yeah.
3 years later, they're making $100,000 a year. So it's kind of cool to see it. That wasn't my story. Again, too much ego, too many hangups, but we got there eventually. So there's a good question. All right. So we see, part of your story. They're going to check out Ken's podcast for some of the special things, but it's kind of crazy. You went from 90,000 in year one to, in year eight, you're going to do 10 million. I love that part of it. But I know along the way, John, like everything wasn't, butterflies and rainbows, right? You had probably some challenges. So I call them six-figure screw ups. But what are some of the things, man, just along the way? You're like, hey, here's a mistake that I made that looking back, you probably could have avoided?
Yeah. So a few things. Yeah, and it hasn't been sunshine and rainbows, right? It's been really hard work, a lot of late nights, going to my wife crying, telling her I don't want to do this anymore type thing. So it's not for the lighthearted, I will tell you that. But if you work hard, you can achieve things. But I would say one of the big lessons I learned when I was growing, kind of around year three, going into year four, or really year two, going to year three, four. I had promoted a supervisor to manager, so I had like a one or two supervisors and a manager, right? Um, and I saw the value in having some sort of director of operations. I was more, and I think that goes with being self-aware and knowing yourself. If you're super great at operations and finance, then that's probably what you should do, and you should hire somebody to do the other stuff. I was pretty decent with the finance stuff, given my background, and pretty good with numbers, but sales and relationship building was my thing. So as far as the mistakes I made, so I knew I needed that operations person because that wasn't my strength. Um, I hired instead of maybe trying to promote from within and be a little more patient. I was trying to hire from outside and bring somebody in as a director of operations, and I went through two different ones that didn't work out. They weren't bad guys at all, but I think I pulled the trigger too soon. They probably weren't a great core value match. And what I ended up doing was promoting from within. But I made a couple bad hires at a pretty high position. And I thought I was getting somewhere. And then, for a whole year and a half, 2 years, I felt like I was just stumbling over myself, and sales and things were still growing. But so, I kind of learned a lesson there that, sometimes you need to grow it from within. It doesn't mean you don't hire people from outside, but you want to look there first, I think. That During COVID, I got little shiny object syndrome for the first time, and uh, um, I pivoted real quick. We started doing a lot of disinfection stuff,
Uh-huh.
and it was going well. And I was like, well, maybe we should take advantage of this and do some marketing and other cities, Chicago, Indianapolis, Nashville, etc. Because I had relationships with companies there that I could sub that work out to, and there's enough margin and blah blah blah. Didn't end up working out. Realized that in order for that to work, I would have had to create a call center and like change the model of my business and get off course. So I ended up losing some money there. So overall, COVID disinfection services, I think my profit was zero after it was all said and done. Um, so I learned a lesson there that you got to don't chase every shiny object and stick with your core. So I'd say those are the main things. And the thing I mentioned earlier about maybe having to let go of some good people because I didn't have the time to train them properly.
Man, John, so man, echoing that piece of it, um, I think for me, man, one of the challenges I had, it wasn't not, it was like kind of a hybrid between the two things that you said. So I actually took some good people. They're great in the positions that are in. And I just wanted success for them so bad. Like I wanted to see them scale up, you know? I was like, oh, I want to like this person, they're doing great. Like I know they want to make more money, want more responsibility. And I would just put them in a position like they weren't, I could just kill them, you know? I
Yeah.
really, and so I had the time for them, quote unquote. I didn't have the timing right. So I like put them in positions and then didn't give them the training they needed to succeed there. But I definitely was like, oh yeah, they can do it. You know, it was that typical thing they'd say like, don't make your best salesperson the sales manager. Like they may not have the gift, you know.
You
But I
took the
know
word.
I
You
had.
took the words right out of my mouth, man. Yeah, yeah.
But the Sachiani Odget syndrome stuff too. I think that's one of the biggest detriments I see in the industry, and not just what we're doing, but like it's just so easy to see the opportunity elsewhere, and it always looks a little easier than it is because you're just comparing it to like the challenges you have every single day that you're kind of sick of. You know, it's like,
Yeah,
oh, we'll go after this. So I'm with you, man. I've made those same six-figure screw ups for sure for us.
yeah, yeah. I think patience. I think if people are a little more patient with their businesses, especially early on, you will get the fruits of your efforts eventually. But it takes some time.
Yeah.
I mean, we live in a world where you get on social media, and if you're a business owner, you start getting hit with ads and people saying you can make $1 million overnight, or you can do this or that and all that. And there are ways to build systems and processes and stuff, and those are all important, and you have to. But I'm telling you, from somebody that's just been in the dirt with it, like you can't get around the hard work, and you can't get around the late nights and all that stuff. It doesn't mean you have to do it forever. Yes, there is something to be said for putting systems in place and somewhat get it on autopilot, but you know, it's not. It's probably somewhere in the middle. It's not the guy that's telling you that you can live on a beach every day and not do anything, but it's also the old school guy that says, you have to work every day in the office for 30 billion hours and you can't ever leave because if you don't control everything, it's going to go crazy. The answer, is somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, man, I agree with you 100% because you got
Yeah.
the guys who are like, well, man, if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. And I'm like, nope. Like it may
Oh,
be done right, but you'll be doing it nonstop. You will never be able to go on vacation, right?
yeah.
There's also those people that are like, hey, man, buy my course, John, and you'll never have to clean anything ever yourself, not even once. First client, you just hire somebody else to do it and everything's perfect. You're going to make six figures easy. And it's like, I mean, I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying I don't see somebody building a sustainable business that way without a ton of freaking headaches for a long, long, long time till they figure out what the systems they really need to have to do all of that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and it depends how big you are too. Each stage of growth requires a little, like your core values and your purpose and what you're all about. For us, it's serving our people, and serving our clients. And um, that stuff shouldn't change no matter how big or small you are. But as you hit different points in growth, they're going to come with different challenges. So a
Yeah.
course that may help you as a $500,000 company, that same course might not help you as a $2 or $3 million
Oh yeah.
company, right?
Yep. Yep.
So Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things I've seen with you. I've seen this with Ricky Regalado. I really appreciate about you guys is that you both have had a lot of success in this industry, but you're both humble enough. And I think this is one of the reasons that you're successful is that you consistently invest in yourself. You consistently raise your hand and you say, "Hey, there's a ton I don't know, so let me invest in." You just came back from an EOS conference, right? So you're like, "All right, let me invest in traction. Let me hire a consultant that helps out with this stuff. Let me hire an implementer. Let me join strategic coach and go and learn from these guys." And so like you're succeeding because you're humble enough to admit that you don't know it all and you have a hunger for getting better. And I love that, man, because I'm like, I didn't do that for long. I did that like on my own. But the first time I ever did anything, first time I ever went to another event, John, that was like a cleaning event, it's because of you. You had mentioned some mentorship group. And then the second time you
Okay.
mentioned it, I was like, what are you talking about? And it was, the Elite BSC with Jordan Tong. And
George Group. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
first event was one of their workshops. I went to their operations workshop in the
Yeah.
love this small town of Owensboro, Kentucky. And then my next event was cleaning and cocktails, right? And so I'm like, man, I have not been going. Like I should have been poured in myself so much longer ago with this type of stuff. I just wasn't doing it. So that's probably one of your in this next section, because I call it 6-figure secrets. I mean, not that I want to let that one out before I ask you the question. I know that's one of yours, but what are the lessons you learned along the way that helped you again get to the 6-figure thing? But I mean, you're on the path to 7 figures for personal income too, with what you're doing with your company. And I say income, I should say owner benefit. I mean, that's in the future for you here sooner than later because of the growth you guys are having. I think that's amazing. So, John, tell us some of the secrets for you that you figured out along the way that you can share with our audience.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I think I would start with what you said is, my uncle, who I worked for about a year out of college, and he was an attorney, but he had a healthcare consulting company. So I did numbers calculator all day, and what he always told me, he said his favorite professor in law school told him what makes a smart person smart or an intelligent person intelligent is knowing what they don't know. It's not what you know, it's knowing what you don't know. What's that come back to? Self-awareness of what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, right? Um, so I think I knew that all along. So I think that takes some humility to say I don't know how to do it. So I would listen to the Grow My Cleaning Company podcast every day when I was cleaning by myself. I put the headphones in. I reached out to other cleaning owners, one guy in St. Louis, another guy in upstate New York. I created a little mastermind group of my own. We had a weekly call. It wasn't anything like formal, but and share ideas and stuff. So I think you gotta reach out to people that you want to emulate or people that you see are doing that have built a successful company and ask them how they did it. And I think that's one of the biggest things is being humble and always being a student of business and learning, right? You know, um, as far as maybe some tips, I think I mentioned on Ken's podcast, but it's I see this a lot. That I quickly realized that the key to me building a successful business and therefore having personal income that's good was not how well I could clean, not how well I could run operations, but how good of a leader of people can I be? Because when you have 260 team members, it's all about culture, it's all about team, it's all about leadership, it's all about recruiting and hiring, and then providing a culture and a great place to work where they feel appreciated to keep them. The biggest pain point at every cleaning business, even ours, even though we're doing pretty well with it, we're fully staffed right now, is people, staffing, retaining people, recruiting. It will always be the biggest challenge in any cleaning business and the biggest pain point, right? So, you know, we've worked really hard. But we worked really hard at those things. Sorry, one of my managers walking in. But yeah, so I'd say those are some of the things. A couple little tactical things that a lot of people don't realize they don't have a finance background when they get in the business. Is there's a difference between profit and cash flow. Um, you can be profitable on your profit and loss statement, and you can take let's say your income is $100 and you spend $70 on expenses. You have $30 left over, but you spend those $70 on labor and equipment, but they don't pay you for that $100 for 2 months. Then you're underneath. You're in the hole, in the red, right? So
Yeah.
the timing of cash, especially when you're little. When you're bigger and your business is more stable, and your personal credit and all that stuff is also stable, and personal financial statement, that at that point a bank is going to be more willing to give you a working capital, a line of credit, where you can dip into those when you have big gaps between when you invoice and or when you spend money and when you get paid, right? So the timing of cash, especially in the beginning, because they probably won't give you a line of credit, right? A bank will give you a loan when you don't need it and won't give you one when you need it, right? So, in the beginning, you really gotta. And so what I did, and I heard it on a podcast, was bill ahead of time. So I think that's super important, and I try to mention it on all the podcasts I'm on. It's just really try to get paid ahead of time on the first month before your expenses come in, because you can run yourself out of business really quick, even if it's a profitable account. That'd be one of the biggest things in the beginning. And don't spend any money until you get a contract. Maybe get a website, maybe get some business cards, because usually you won't start a contract for 30 days or 60 days, right? So you can do anything in 30 days or
Yep.
60 days. You can go buy that vacuum or rags or whatever, right? You want to be pretty frugal in the beginning.
Yeah. Like,
When
for
you,
instance, you don't have to get insurance before you get your first contract. Get a
right.
quote for it. Know you can get approved for it, right? But like, man, you don't have to start that policy before you're like until you get started. Like,
Nothing starts so you get that first contract.
that's right. So you can get quotes for all this stuff, but you don't got to pull the trigger on that. You don't have to have insurance for 9 months with no clients. Like, get the quote, know what you're going to have to spend on it, and then sign that first agreement and daggum hit that insurance thing, man. Like, roll with
Yep.
it. That's a
Yep.
great point, man. I appreciate you mentioning that. And two, so I want you to give, like, I think people are scared, John, of asking for money up front. I think that they're like, there's something where it's, I just feels, is there anything you could say to the listener to say, hey, here's how to get over that? Or, because you're not getting any pushback from your clients, I'm assuming, when you're telling them, hey, this is how we bill you.
No. So first of all, it's more commonplace in our business than you think. Um, in most businesses, that are not recurring revenue type businesses, which is janitorial businesses, which is why probably a big reason you and I are both doing it, right? You get a customer and it's whatever, 5,000 a month, and as long as you take care of them, they'll pay you 5,000 a month every month for 30 years, right? Um, so on one-time transactions, whether it's somebody comes out to do your driveway, or they come out to, or whatever, whatever it may be, or you get pest control or whatever, you don't typically pay somebody for services until they're done, right?
Yeah.
Well, in our business, because of the way we have to pay our people, which is people are 60-70% of your revenue, right?
Yeah.
That's going out if you're including administrative and other stuff. So you have a big nut to cover. And so I think to your point, the way it's worked for me, and not all of them are going to be okay with it, but if you work with local companies that you can build relationships with, why local? Well, local, when you're starting, at least, the person that cuts the check to you or sends you the money is in that office,
Mhm.
as opposed to whatever, a national O'Reilly Auto Parts that's based in California, but they have a satellite office, or a uh, like some sort of industrial facility in Athens, Georgia.
Yeah.
Well, the people that are cutting the check are in California, right? So when you're starting, you have a little more control over the cash than you do with a national company that's not around. It doesn't mean you don't take on national companies later, but in the beginning, my advice would be working with local companies and just being completely honest with them. So the first one, it's amazing when you're honest with people and transparent, and you ask nicely
Yeah.
how much you can get. And so in the beginning, I told them, I said, look, I can't afford to be the bank right now, but nobody's going to work harder than me right now, because I have to have the money to put food on the table for myself. So you're going to get somebody that's going to work their butt off. I do need to be paid ahead of time. Is that okay? Um, and you don't even make a big deal of it like it's something that's not normal. You almost talk about it like it is normal, you know. And so we bill on the 16th of the month prior to service with, and for a long time it was net 15 or net 30 from there. So but that is super important to be able to build your business. And it also helps you build cash flow too. So you're not always on that line of like not hitting payroll or hitting payroll. You have a little buffer there too. And then you have money to reinvest in your company.
Man, that's such good advice. I'll tell you. So my business, we started doing commercial. I just a blunder, right? I just didn't think it through, but we started in residential and we just started doing anything they'd offer us, right? We were doing post construction. We realized commercials where we wanted to be, but we were billing after the fact, so we'd bill at the end of the month for the month we just cleaned for. And at a certain point in time in residential, we were getting paid the day we cleaned it. And we just like, all right, let's go all commercial. Let's fire off our residential. And we crushed our cash flow. We're not even thinking about it. And so, man, John, you should have seen us how fast we get them checks and get it to the bank. It was like, oh, I hope that check comes in the day. We were so stressed because we didn't do what you just said. So definitely for people early on, man, that's what they need to do.
Well, and also if you've been in business for 3-4 years, because I was coaching another guy up in Minneapolis, good friend of mine, and I meant it was one of the first things I recommended to him. But these were current clients that have already been paying them after the end of the month for a while now.
Yeah.
And I said, just sit down and be honest with them, man. Have a conversation. Say, hey, I'm struggling a little bit with cash flow. And I've learned that it's actually fairly commonplace to get paid ahead of time or by the first of the month of service. I have to pay all my guys, can't afford to be the bank right now. Again, we're going to work hard for you. Is there any way we could switch to that? And I know it's going to be a little hard on you, maybe to get that approved or whatever, but because I am going to have to bill double 1 month to catch up and then start billing ahead of time. And this was for a large medical group. You're talking 30 locations and his largest customer. And they said, yeah, sure. And his business account went from 20,000 to 90,000 within 30 days.
Yeah, and
it's a lot easier.
Solved all his cash flow problems right in.
And you can breathe easier, right?
With one difficult conversation.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And too, that's the thing too. I mean, gosh, what a life-changing, business-changing conversation. And like worst case scenario, they say no.
And just be honest. Hey, I didn't even know that this was commonplace. And I didn't know that this was affecting my cash flow this way, right? Like, so this is my mistake and I apologize, but is there any way you could work with me here?
Yeah. I love that, man. See, that's right there. They'll be like, I didn't know this until I heard John Disselkamp on the Six Figure Cleaner podcast. I mean, I had no way of knowing this. Whoever listened to this episode, just send it right to us. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, John, I got one last question for you, man. I call it 6-figure strategies, but the question is, if you were going to start over today, start a new commercial cleaning company, and you wanted to get to 6 figures fast, what would you focus on? Would you do anything different than you did previously? Or, what kind of strategies would you take if you wanted to build something that also, by the way, as I'm saying that, not that you just kill yourself cleaning all the time. If you're like, no, I want to build a business that I can have a little bit of lifestyle, but have 6 figures of ownership benefit on a yearly basis. What would you do to start that business? Or what would you focus on?
So if you had a little bit of a buffer money wise, let's say you have some money in savings, then I would say, hire a supervisor earlier than you would otherwise, right? The faster you can build a team to run things, the faster you can get to that 6 figures. But I would also say that I'm maybe not the best person to answer this question, because I would say you need to be patient in that early time. And I will tell you that first couple of years of grinding has paid off big time, because I've never asked my managers, my supervisors to do anything that I wouldn't do myself or haven't already done. And there's just a lot of value and credibility in that. And it's a lot easier to build a culture. So I'm not saying you can't get to 6 figures within 1 year or whatever, you can. But the companies that I've seen succeed from scratch have put in the time and effort and and the grind and even clean a little bit yourself. You don't need to clean as long as I did, like the first 6 months, but you got to clean a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to know. For me, it was like I would get one building and then I would clean it myself to learn how long it takes to clean it and to know everything in it. So
Yeah.
they couldn't get everything over on me. Once I and then I would hire somebody and say, hey, it takes 6 hours to clean this or whatever. And then I would go get the next sale. And then I would clean it for a few days and maybe have somebody there with me, learn how long it takes. And I was guessing when I was pricing, right? And then hiring somebody else. I would just speed up that process maybe a little bit, right? And I think you can get there pretty quick. And then I would just hit the pavement, going door to door, reaching out to people on LinkedIn. Um, if you think about it, and again, COVID has changed things, but almost everybody works for a company. Most companies have an office, so this could be family, friends, anybody, and ask them, where do you work? And I know you probably don't handle the facilities, or you're not the office manager or the facilities manager, the property manager. Is there any way you can introduce me to that person? Even if they're working from home, they still may have a connection to the people that are working in the office. Or, hey, who's your doctor, right? If you want to look at medical, I know you do a lot of medical, and so do we. So, you know, and you can find out a lot of things on LinkedIn. As far as depending on your ideal client profile, you know, it doesn't mean you don't spend money on marketing right away, but be careful with it. You can throw away a lot of money pretty quick if you're not doing it right and not strategic about it.
And everybody wants to sell you that.
And everybody wants to sell you
Commercial
that.
companies, they're like, everybody wants to sell you a lead or sell you SEO or help you scale your business to 1 million in no time. People hadn't even started a cleaning company before, but they want to help you scale. I mean, I'm like, golly, there's so many marketing things people are throwing at you that.
Well, and we're in a relationship business, man. No matter if it's a small one and you're doing marketing, whatever it might be, at the end of the day, we're in relationship business, and people want. I mean, think about it. They don't give their family keys to the office, but they give random people that own a cleaning company a key to the office at night. So there has to be some trust there.
Yeah.
The only way to build trust is to build a relationship and earn that trust. And in the beginning, you need to go out. I mean, I still, do the walkthrough and bring my who is now my president, COO, integrator of the company, and our director of ops, along with us. And then we come back, a few days later and deliver the proposal, but the more FaceTime you can get in front of people. But I will tell you, there are so many bad cleaning companies now, and the amount of cleaning companies, there's more people starting them than ever.
Yeah.
But the big ones are consolidating a lot. A lot of private equity company are buying up companies, and the service on those is going way down, which is not great for the industry as a whole. But for companies like yours and mine, once you get in that sweet spot of not too small, not too big, it's hard to compete with companies like mine or yours because we're still trying to do it the right way. And then I'll say one thing, maybe one of the biggest reasons we've had some success is we put our people first. Well, what does that mean? Well, we you know we love on our people, we support them. We have a saying here, before you ask them to pick up a mop, before you ask them to pick up a mop, ask them how their family's doing, right? And we just kind of built that ingrained into the culture and tried to hire people that are good people first, skills second. And that's now we're starting to see some of the fruits of those efforts, as all of our managers they're all different in their own unique ways, but they all share those same values, right?
Yeah.
So,
Man, that's awesome, man. That's you're saying that. I just people struggle with building the team, and recruiting people and stuff like that for sure. You hear that all the time in the industry, and not just our industry, but just in general. But man, if you can really figure out this is what's unique about our company from a culture standpoint, like this is who we are. If you look for people who fit that, and it's like your company where you guys do a phenomenal job of treating your people really well, and I see it with things you guys do. You'll post about on LinkedIn sometimes, and I value the way you set the example on how to treat people, and if you treat people that well that work for you, like they're going to take care of the client. The good people that come in and share your values, they're going to take care of the client because you're taking care of them. And a lot of people miss that. And I'm with you, man. There's never been a better time, in my opinion, to be doing what we're doing Especially if you get, if you start to scale a little bit, you create more opportunities that bigger companies aren't going after for whatever reason, and smaller companies they're not big enough to take on some of the things. And so there's a great opportunity for lots of us. So
And I would say don't be intimidated by the larger accounts.
yeah,
There's less people. Um, well, I don't know, perhaps less companies competing for it, but also the bigger janitorial companies are not necessarily better. Oftentimes, they provide way less service than you do, and don't be intimidated by those larger accounts. You'd be surprised, that you could outperform those people, and you know, um, and you can really scale a company with larger accounts because the larger account, the more commonplace it is to be able to budget in the price. A manager or a strong site supervisor that doesn't leave that site and has an office on that site to run that facility, and then it kind of runs itself, right? And I use the example of the high rise in Lexington that we do, this 31 floors skyscraper and a 12-story building next to it. And it's been easier to manage that from afar because Lexington's an hour away than if we would have got a 2-day a week dental office account. Because if somebody calls out, we got to go clean it. Whereas we can kind of manage that from under that one roof, right?
yeah.
So I'm not suggesting everybody go after high rises, but don't be intimidated by the bigger ones. It
Yeah,
just
I'm glad you
requires.
shared that at Cleaning and Cocktails. I was like, dude, that's so awesome. It's like its own little department or business within itself.
Yeah,
It's
and then
bigger business.
and then the less time you have to do to deal with it, the more time you can build and grow and scale,
Yeah,
right? If you're
yeah,
always being sucked into all these different problems, you can't grow, right?
yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, John, man, I appreciate you so much being a part of the podcast today. You guys follow John you put a lot of content on LinkedIn, which I love. I love this, John, specifically. I think every year you post the picture, the throwback picture of you cleaning your first account. And I just love it, man, because I'm
Hold
with
on,
you.
I got something for you.
Yeah, let's find it. I love that you do that because one of the things for me is I feel like, hey, go out and get your hand. Yeah, there it is, man. There's you got a giant picture of it. That's amazing.
A buddy of mine did that as a joke. So
That
yeah,
should be the front page of every proposal you guys do. So, hey, man, I
yeah,
know how to get this done. I did it. But no, I'm with you. I feel like, if you get in there and figure this stuff out on your own, then you know how to relate to every cleaner that comes through the doors of your company, right? Because like, then I've done this before, man. I know what it's like. So I appreciate your leadership, man. I appreciate, the times you and I have had conversations just on the phone before we ever met in person. I mean, I remember one time giving you some numbers. You're like running numbers for me with your commercial banker background. And so you've been an inspiration to me personally. You're a leader in the industry. You're serving others and you're showing people how to serve others. So, man, thanks for your time today, John. And I just appreciate you, brother.
all right, I appreciate you too, bud. Thanks.